Anicet Dybantsa refuses the Wizards. Anicet Dybantsa was the #1 pick for the Wizards, but now reports suggest he may be refusing their offer. To be honest, it's not entirely shocking. Before the draft, he skipped workouts, made teams come to him, and sparked plenty of speculation. So what's actually going on? Let me break it down. The moment Adam Silver's voice filled Barclays Center on that Tuesday night in Brooklyn, the reaction was instant. Dybantsa, called by his full name, Anicet Dybantsa Jr., in tribute to his father, appeared to say a quick prayer after his name was announced, then went on stage to greet Commissioner Adam Silver and slipped on a black Wizards hat that matched nicely with his black suit. The crowd erupted, but behind the celebration, there was a conversation the basketball world had been having for weeks about whether this kid, who'd done things his own way every single step of the route to this moment, would even show up to Washington willing to play ball. Because here's the thing people need to understand about how Dybantsa navigated this whole process. He didn't work out, not once, not for anyone. On Baseline Banter, he revealed that he has not participated in on-court workouts for any NBA franchise during the pre-draft process. "I didn't work out for none. I just visited the cities. Take me to the facility, take me to dinner, talk. I don't gotta work out. They know what I can do," Dybantsa said. In the history of the modern NBA draft, where prospects fly city to city, putting on private performances for front offices, that stance is essentially unheard of. For someone not yet locked in as a guaranteed first pick, it was bold, it was borderline arrogant, and it was completely backed up by the film. So what exactly did the Wizards get? What did Washington bring home that night? The 6'9" BYU standout averaged 25 points, 6-8 rebounds, 3-7 assists, and 1-1 steals per game, while shooting 51% from the field in his lone college season. He is the first player to lead Division I in scoring and go first in the draft since Glenn Robinson came out of Purdue in 1994. That's not just a #1 pick. That's a generational statistical marker. When the last time someone did that was over 30 years ago, you're not picking a prospect, you're picking a statement. The reactions started rolling in fast, and they weren't all congratulations. On a recent episode of Get Up, Jay Williams made his stance on the Wizards selecting Dybantsa crystal clear. "I trust the first pick in the draft, Anicet Dybantsa, but I'm not sure I trust the organization of the Washington Wizards," Williams said. That's the tension that underlined the entire evening. Not a question of whether Dybantsa was good enough. Nobody was questioning that. The question was whether the Wizards, a franchise that has spent years at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, were good enough for him. Stephen A. Smith piled on. The narrative around the league from players has already changed regarding the Wizards, as they're now viewed as a franchise on the rise. But if you ask analysts like Williams or Stephen A. Smith, it feels like the past mistakes from the previous regime are making it impossible for anyone to give the new-look Wizards the benefit of the doubt. That's the split that made draft night fascinating. The players around the league were buying in on Washington's trajectory, while the media commentators were still stuck on what the Wizards used to be. Those are two very different conversations happening in the same room. John Wall, the last player Washington called #1 overall, back in 2010, weighed in ahead of the draft with a very different read. You get a guy like Anicet Dybantsa, he is like a young Tracy McGrady to me, Wall told ESPN last month when he represented the Wizards at the draft lottery. Tracy McGrady, that's not a modest comparison. T-Mac was one of the most gifted scorers the NBA has ever seen, 7-time All-Star scoring champion, a player who could carry a team on his back and make it look effortless. Wall wasn't throwing that comparison around lightly. He was vouching for the kid's ceiling. And then there was Dybantsa himself, freshly drafted, speaking to reporters on a conference call from what had to be one of the most electric nights of his life. "I just know they're super hungry," Dybantsa said, of DC's love for basketball. "Obviously, they have a great young core, and the potential is there, obviously. Measured, calm, not gushing, not performing. Just a kid who'd already done the math and liked what he saw." That composure, by the way, is not an accident. It's something that gets drilled into this story the deeper you dig. Dybantsa doesn't get rattled. He doesn't get swept up in the moment. He's 19 years old and he talks like someone who's been preparing for this exact conversation his entire life, because frankly, he has been. What Dybantsa said next told you everything about what kind of player he's planning to be in the NBA. "I bring versatility," Dybantsa said. "I can just fit in as like an off-ball guy that can score in different ways. Score in transition, score off the catch, score off the dribble. but also they challenged me when they talked to me. If we pick you, we want you to play defense 94 feet and pick up. So I definitely bring that too. Defense, a #1 pick, talking about defense before his rookie season starts. That's not a kid coasting on talent. That's someone who already understands the game well enough to know what the next level demands. But to understand why this draft night hit the way it did, you have to understand the backdrop, what the Washington Wizards were before this moment, and what was at stake for them. The Wizards haven't made the playoffs since 2021 and have not been passed. The second round since 1979, when the then Bullets lost in the NBA Finals. Let that sit for a second. Over 4 decades without a deep playoff run, a franchise that's been spinning its wheels for years, losing games, cycling through coaches, watching talent come and go without ever building anything sustainable. This pick wasn't just about getting a good player, it was about identity. After losing nearly 200 games over the past 3 seasons, the Washington Wizards ushered in a new era by drafting BYU freshman forward Anicet Dybantsa with the #1 pick in the NBA draft Tuesday night. The Wizards selected Dybantsa over Kansas freshman guard Darren Peterson to help turn around the franchise. Nearly 200 losses. That's not a rebuild, that's a demolition. And now they're standing in the rubble, holding the #1 pick, hoping this 19-year-old from Brockton, Massachusetts, is the brick they build everything else on. Owner Ted Leonsis made clear he believed the plan was working faster than expected. "We're on the plan that we articulated," Wizards owner Ted Leonsis told ESPN. "We actually are a year ahead of the plan because I thought it would take 4 to 5 years. And this really was the third offseason, where we were developing young players, deconstructing, looking to add for the go forward. A major feature of the plan is drafting Dybantsa as a pillar, not a piece, not an addition to the roster. A pillar, the thing everything else gets built around." So the Wizards had their guy, but getting him there, the pre-draft process, the negotiations, the drama about who was actually going first. That's the story that most people weren't watching closely enough. Because in the weeks leading up to this night, there were real questions about whether Dybantsa was going to Washington at all, and whether the Wizards were even certain they wanted him. The #2 pick that night was Darren Peterson, a guard out of Kansas. Dybantsa beat out fellow freshman Darren Peterson of Kansas, who was taken at the #2 pick by Utah. While some thought Peterson had the most talent in the class, the guard missed 11 games during the season because of injuries and illness, potentially creating some questions that Dybantsa didn't have. Peterson was legitimate competition. There were respected voices in the league who thought he had the higher ceiling. And then there was the wrinkle. Peterson, unlike Dybantsa, had publicly signaled he didn't want to work out with Washington either, but for very different reasons. The smoke signals were flying everywhere in those final days before the draft. One Eastern Conference general manager went on the record with CBS Sports and said Washington always keeps things close to the vest, posturing and thinking they're smarter than everyone else. That's a rival executive taking a shot at Washington's process in real time. And meanwhile, the kid who was supposed to be going first overall was busy at the French Open. That's not a typo. We'll get to that. But first, let's go back to the beginning, because nothing about Anicet Dybantsa Jr. makes sense without understanding where he came from. The name on his birth certificate is Anicet Dybantsa Jr., born January 29, 2007, in Boston, Massachusetts. Dybantsa grew up in Brockton, initially attending St. Sebastian's School, Brockton, Massachusetts, a city with a long tradition of producing fighters, both literal and metaphorical. Rocky Marciano came from there. Marvin Hagler came from there. And now Anicet Dybantsa Jr., who by the time he was a teenager, was already being positioned as the next transcendent basketball talent. But the Brockton story is incomplete without the man behind the curtain. Dybantsa is of Congolese and Jamaican origin. His father, Ace, was born in the Republic of Congo and moved to Grigny, France, and his mother, Chelsea, is from Jamaica. 2 continents, 2 cultures, converging in a parking lot in Boston, because that's literally how this family started. Ace and Chelsea's love story began with a chance encounter in a Boston area parking lot. On a cold winter night, Chelsea was searching for a parking spot outside her gym when Ace approached her car and asked if she needed help. The two hit it off and began dating. shortly afterward, according to the Washington Post. From a cold parking lot in Boston to a basketball dynasty. That's the through line of this story. Anicet Dybantsa Sr. was born in Brazzaville, Congo in the late 1960s. He lived 13 years in Congo before moving to France with his brother. My dad thought it was better for me to move to France for a better education, Ace said. That's how I started. Education as the foundation. That theme shows up everywhere in the Dybantsa family's story. Ace didn't come to France for basketball. He came for school. He came for opportunity. And when he eventually built a life in America, he passed that same value down to his son. The father's journey is worth slowing down on because it shapes everything about how AJ was raised and how he navigated the road to the NBA. Ace worked as a campus police officer at Boston University before retiring to serve as AJ's manager in 2024. He gave up a career, a stable government job with benefits and pension, the kind of thing an immigrant family works decades to access, and he walked away from it to manage his son's basketball future full-time. That's not a small sacrifice. That's a complete reorientation of your life around a bet on your kid. And Ace runs AJ's world in a way that makes most sports parents look passive. The Dybantsa family works with a marketing team based in Paris. However, Ace currently oversees all basketball-related and off-court matters for his son. Reportedly, he has already negotiated several major NIL agreements with prominent companies. Without the assistance of a traditional agent, no agent. A Paris-based marketing team, a former police officer who decided he already knew enough to represent his son without paying someone else to do it. When asked about why, Ace's logic was blunt and hard to argue with. I'm just doing what I believe is best for my son. You know how much AJ is going to make. Everyone and their mother knows how much AJ is going to make. Whoever doesn't know, all they have to do is Google it. AJ is going to get a max rookie deal. You know that. I know that. So why should I hire an agent to tell me what I already know? That's the man running this operation. And the basketball world had opinions about that. AJ took no shortage of flack throughout this process due to his father running point on everything. College coaches weren't allowed to talk to AJ for most of his recruitment, and those who were boxed out frequently spoke negatively about Ace. One reason for that, coaches have seen bad outcomes many times when a parent tries to dictate every angle of a situation. Emoni Bates is one recent example. Fair concern. The list of high-ceiling prospects whose careers got derailed by overbearing parents or handlers is long and uncomfortable. Every scout, every coach, every front office executive in the league knew that name. Emoni Bates as a cautionary tale. But the Dybantsas weren't doing what most of those families do. They weren't chasing money or status. They were building a system. In reality, the Dybantsas were working the system while trying to plot every move to the best possible outcome for their son. They didn't take a single vacation for 6 years. AJ would do workouts 3 times per day on most non-school days throughout his high school career. 3 workouts a day. No family vacations for 6 years. While other kids in AJ's peer group were living the life that comes with being a top recruit. The appearances, the hype, the social media, this family was in the gym. The discipline in the Dybantsa household was not optional. There's a story that gets told in basketball circles that says everything about how Ace ran things. One oft-told example of Dybantsa discipline is the time Ace drove AJ 6 hours to a game for a team outside of school only to tell his son he couldn't play because he had gotten a C in a class. AJ has been an honor roll student ever since. 6 hours just to sit on the bench and watch. Ace wanted his son to feel the cost of academic carelessness in the most visceral way possible. And it worked. The kid hasn't gotten a bad grade since. Then there was the social media incident, equally brutal in its own way. Ace texted the coach that morning to say AJ wouldn't be playing. The coach called to make sure AJ was okay. Yeah, Ace said everything's okay, but AJ wasn't supposed to go on social media, and I took his phone away. Then he found another way to go on social media. So I'm going to take away what means the most to him, and that's playing basketball. Took away basketball as punishment for using social media. When the game is the thing you love most, the thing you wake up every morning to do, and your father removes access to it because you broke a rule, you learn fast what matters and what doesn't. By the time AJ was a sophomore in high school, the basketball world knew something special was coming. Dybantsa was named the #1 NBA prospect in the 2026 class by ESPN. Following his high school freshman season, with his first NCAA Division I college offer, coming from Boston College. His freshman year, not sophomore, not junior, after his very first year of high school basketball. ESPN put him at the top of the entire class 3 years ahead of the actual draft. That's how rare his combination of size, skill, and athleticism was. Every school in America came calling. Additional schools that offered him a scholarship and/or were under consideration include Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Baylor, BYU, UConn, Duke, Georgia Tech, Georgetown, Kentucky, North Carolina, Providence, USC, Utah, and Washington. The who's who of college basketball. Duke, Kentucky, UConn, North Carolina. Every blue blood program in the country was in that mix, and none of them could get a direct line to AJ. Every call went through Ace. The path to college got complicated and unconventional. Dybantsa began his high school career in the Brockton area, playing for St. Sebastian's School his freshman year, which is an all-boys Catholic school. However, as his basketball profile increased, he transferred to elite prep academies twice. First, to Prolific Prep in California for his sophomore year, then to Utah Prep for his final high school season before committing to BYU. Brockton to California to Utah. 3 schools across 3 states in 3 years of high school. Every move deliberate. Every move designed to put AJ in the environment that served his development best, not what looked best on a highlights reel. The BYU decision shocked people. When AJ Dybantsa, the consensus #1 recruit in the country, the kid every heavyweight program wanted, announced he was going to Brigham Young University, the reaction ranged from confusion to outright mockery. This is the story of a young man cynics said didn't belong at BYU. Several months into the AJ experiment in Provo, Utah, he had shown that he does, and the Dybantsas had done their homework on the fit before committing. BYU was the pick because of the isolated location with a strict code of conduct, minimal distractions, Young's NBA connections, and the NBA-ification of the program. Ace and AJ did their diligence and inquired about Young to Durant, Devin Booker, and Chris Paul before committing. All enthusiastically vouched for him. Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Chris Paul. Before picking a college, this family called active NBA All-Stars to vet the coaching staff. That's not normal. That's chess while everyone else is playing checkers. AJ made his college announcement on First Take, sitting next to his father, explaining his reasoning directly to Stephen A. Smith. On December 10, 2024, Dybantsa announced on First Take that he would be committing to BYU as he wanted to play basketball without much off-court attention. No distractions, no circus. In a world where every top recruit's college decision becomes a television spectacle, AJ's reasoning was to go somewhere quiet and work. And then he did exactly that. What AJ did at BYU wasn't just impressive. It was historic. Dybantsa led Division I in scoring in his lone collegiate season with 25 points on 51% shooting, leading the entire country in scoring, every division, every conference, every level of college basketball, while shooting over half your shots. That combination of volume and efficiency is not normal. It's what happens when someone is operating on a different level than the competition around them. The highlight that stuck with people most was one specific night. On January 24, 2026, Dybantsa passed Danny Ainge for the most points posted by a BYU freshman in a game, recording 43 points during a 91-78 victory over Utah. 43 points against Utah in a game that mattered, in a Big 12 conference matchup where the other team desperately wanted to stop him. He broke the all-time BYU freshman scoring record in the same breath as he was torching a rival. His resume was clean. He was a consensus first-team All-American and earned both first-team Big 12 and Conference Freshman of the Year honors. All-American, Big 12 first-team Freshman of the Year. And yet, even in the middle of that decorated season, context matters. As Dawkins pointed out, he had a fully loaded plate for much of his one-and-done BYU campaign. His best secondary option and playmaker, Richie Saunders, tore his ACL midway through the season, demanding even more out of Dybantsa on a college team otherwise lacking in professional-looking prospects. He put up those numbers short-handed. His best teammate went down, and he absorbed even more responsibility. And his efficiency didn't drop. It held. There's one more layer to the BYU season that's important to mention, and it connects directly to the draft process. He said often that his best quality is his ability to be versatile and play multiple positions, guard multiple positions. During one interview session, he made a point of emphasizing his occasionally maligned defense. "I'm taking pride in defense a lot," he said. "It was kinda nice just to be a scorer at BYU. But being 6'9" with a long wingspan, being able to switch on ball and off ball, I can be a pest." He was already anticipating the criticism before anyone could level it. Defense was the knock on Dybantsa from scouts throughout the season, a legitimate one given that BYU's system didn't demand elite defensive effort the way NBA teams would, but Dybantsa's response wasn't defensive. He acknowledged it, leaned into it, and told the league he was ready to be challenged on it. And the Wizards were already challenging him on exactly that. The BYU chapter ended. On April 22, Dybantsa declared for the 2026 NBA draft, in which he was projected as a potential first overall pick. The projection part was almost redundant. By that point, the only real question was which team would be lucky enough to call his name, and whether the Wizards would have the nerve to make it happen their way, or whether the chaos of the pre-draft process would upend everything. Here's what the typical pre-draft process looks like for a top prospect. They fly to cities, they do on-court workouts, one-on-one drills, shooting circuits, agility tests. Coaches and front office evaluators stand on the sideline with clipboards and watches. The prospect performs, the organization evaluates. Then everyone goes home and makes decisions. Dybantsa skipped all of that. AJ Dybantsa revealed that he has not participated in on-court workouts for any NBA franchise during the pre-draft process. Not Washington, not Utah, which held the number 2 pick. Not anyone. The most coveted player in the 2026 class. The kid every scout and general manager in the league had followed since his freshman year of high school. Looked the entire process in the eye and decided the film was sufficient. His logic was unshakable. Dybantsa also clarified that he did not work out for any team during the draft process. He visited cities. He sat down with front office executives and coaches. He toured facilities and talked basketball, but he never put on shorts in front of a front office for a formal workout. That line was firm from the beginning, and he never wavered from it. So what did he do instead? Dybantsa has been everywhere during the pre-draft process. He was in Boston for his older sister's graduation from Boston College. Then Dybantsa and his father flew to Paris for the French Open and continued training sessions with Zach Gonzalez, the same trainer who went through the pre-draft process with Brooklyn Nets guard Igor Denham last year. Dybantsa then flew back to the States and was the player correspondent for the NBA during Game 3 and Game 4 of the NBA Finals in New York City. It wasn't until last weekend when he finally flew to both Washington, D.C. and Salt Lake City to meet with the Wizards and Jazz. Let that timeline soak in. His sister's graduation in Boston, Paris for the French Open, training sessions on a different continent, courtside at the NBA Finals as a correspondent, and then, almost as an afterthought, with a week left before the draft, he flew to Washington and Salt Lake City for meetings. Not workouts, meetings, dinner and conversation, and facility tours. While rival prospects were sweating through hour-long workout sessions, Dybantsa was eating croissants in Paris. That's not laziness, that's leverage, and he knew exactly how much he had. The rival teams around the league were watching all of this with fascination. With the draft picture beginning to crystallize, the intrigue began at the very top, where the Washington Wizards had a tough decision to make between AJ Dybantsa and Darren Peterson. And it genuinely felt, in those final days, like a real competition. Peterson was no afterthought. He was a transcendent talent in his own right, a guard who many scouts believed could be the best player in the class if his health held up. But Peterson had his own complicated relationship with the process. While some top picks like Darren Peterson have not even preferred to work out with the Wizards, Dybantsa was only concerned about getting picked at the first spot. Peterson wasn't just skipping workouts. He was signaling disinterest in specific franchises, and that created a very different energy around his name than what was surrounding Dybantsa. The smoke from Peterson's camp was particularly loud. Peterson reportedly canceled his workout with the Jazz after a strong meeting with Washington, leading those within his camp to believe that it will be Peterson going no one, not Dybantsa. Camp chatter, pre-draft posturing, the kind of noise that fills the 2 weeks before the draft and makes every analyst think they know something they don't. Peterson's people believed they had Washington's ear. And for a moment, the league wasn't sure they were wrong. CBS Sports spoke to Dybantsa's father hours before the draft, and Ace was characteristically direct. "I don't know where it's going to be, but AJ is going no one," he said. He added, he doesn't care where he goes. He just wants Adam Silver to say his name first at 8 a.m. tonight. No preference for Washington, no discomfort with the Wizards, just a singular obsession with hearing his name called first. Whatever city was attached to it, whatever franchise was on the other end, the only thing that mattered was the number. That quote got interpreted in a lot of different ways. Some read it as Ace's way of saying Washington specifically wasn't a destination his son had strong feelings about, positive or negative. Others read it as a sign of confidence that the pick was already decided. The truth was probably somewhere in between. AJ wanted to go number 1, full stop, and his father was making sure the world understood that's all he cared about. Meanwhile, the Wizards were doing what the Wizards do, staying quiet. The Wizards have continued to keep things quiet as they move toward a final decision. Signs continue to point toward Dybantsa as the most likely choice, one who best marries upside with fit for Washington. They weren't confirming, they weren't denying, they were processing, and the basketball world was spinning out, trying to read their silence. The fit argument ultimately won the debate. Shams Charania reported that the Wizards agreed to a 4-year, $212 million contract with Trae Young. That long-term commitment muddied the upside of a pairing with Peterson, who wants to grow into playing point guard long-term. After Atlanta was unable to find much value for Young at the trade deadline, dealing him to Washington for CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert, the 27-year-old Young will presumably be a Wizard for a while. It's difficult to envision a scenario in which Young's production and Peterson's development would both be maximized. The margin between Peterson and Dybantsa is narrow enough that those circumstances could factor in. This is where basketball logic cuts through the noise. Peterson and Young would have been competing for the same space on the floor. Two-ball dominant guards doesn't build a roster. It creates friction. Dybantsa, with his size and ability to operate off the ball, slots in alongside Trae in a way that Peterson never could. The decision wasn't just about talent, it was about architecture. And Dybantsa, to his credit, had already clocked this. Dybantsa's downhill scoring and elite physical gifts are unlike any other players on the Wizards roster. Pairing Dybantsa with Young would lessen the immediate demand on the rookie to create offense in the half court, and give him a path to maximizing his ability defensively too. He wasn't walking into a situation where the franchise was built around him and only him. He was walking into a roster with veterans and a point guard who can carry offensive possessions, which actually made the development path easier, not harder. The Wizards GM was also doing something that caught people's attention during the pre-draft process. Wizards general manager Will Dawkins made headlines in 2025 when he reportedly showed Johnson his own collegiate film, specifically defensive mistakes he committed during his time with the Texas Longhorns, and reportedly dug into the same recruitment bag in an even higher stakes visit with Dybantsa. Dawkins showed prospects their own mistakes on film, not their highlights, their weaknesses. As a recruiting strategy, it's counterintuitive. You'd expect a franchise trying to woo the most coveted player in the draft to roll out the red carpet and tell him how incredible he is. Dawkins did the opposite. His thinking was clear. We still want to be who we are, and we tell them we want them to be who they are. He told media upon the first round's conclusion, "Don't change your identity to land a player. Be honest about what you expect, what you'll challenge them on, and what the path looks like." And apparently, that approach worked, because Dybantsa didn't run from the challenge. He embraced it. The pre-draft visit to Washington told Dybantsa something important. Dybantsa clarified that he did not work out for any team during the draft process. He also noted he was able to check out the arena and facilities during his visit, along with checking out a Washington Mystics game. And then he dropped what had to be the most casually charming line of the entire pre-draft cycle. "Recently went to a Mystics game when they played the Liberty. They actually won. I think I might have been some good luck." Dybantsa joked. Good luck charm vibes. The kid trying to sell himself to a franchise by claiming he brought winning energy to the arena, 24 hours before being drafted number 1 overall. He was cracking jokes at a WNBA game. But there was one moment during the pre-draft that crystallized who Dybantsa was heading into the NBA better than anything else. All the signs pointed to BYU star AJ Dybantsa materializing into the top overall pick for the Washington Wizards. In the 2026 NBA draft, But to Dybantsa himself, he admitted he didn't know he would become the first overall pick. That means him posting a picture of himself as a kid with his dad in front of the White House wasn't foreshadowing, instead joking that he initially planned to post another picture of him as a child. A childhood photo in front of the White House, posted the day before he was drafted by the Washington Wizards to play basketball in DC. The internet went absolutely wild. People called it fate. People called it a message. Dybantsa himself called it a coincidence, with a grin that made you think he probably wasn't entirely bothered that it landed the way it did. That's the essence of AJ Dybantsa. Serious when it matters, loose when it doesn't, and always a half step ahead of what the moment calls for. The pre-draft process was supposed to be about teams evaluating him. He flipped the script and spent the entire cycle evaluating them right back. And when the night came, he walked into Barclays Center in a perfectly fitted black suit, said a quiet prayer when his name was called, and slipped on the Wizards' hat like he'd been waiting for that specific moment since he was old enough to hold a basketball. Now let's talk about Washington, because the criticism from analysts like Jay Williams and Stephen A. Smith wasn't coming from nowhere. It was rooted in a history that the Wizards can't escape simply by landing a top pick. Washington hasn't won 50 games in a season since 1978-79. The season it lost in the finals a year after winning the franchise's lone NBA championship. One championship, one finals appearance after that, and then nearly 50 years of mediocrity, near misses, and collapses. That's the legacy Dybantsa is inheriting. But the Wizards management has been arguing loudly and consistently that the team he's walking into is not the team that accumulated those losses. Unlike 2010, the Wizards have been rebuilding for 3 seasons. They only very recently have acquired 2 All-Stars in Trae Young, who will be a Wizard for the next 4 seasons, and Anthony Davis. Trae Young and Anthony Davis. Those aren't rebuilding-era players. Those are legitimate, proven stars, a 2-time All-NBA point guard and a defensive centerpiece who's been one of the best big men in the league for a decade. The Wizards aren't handing Dybantsa a blank canvas. They're handing him a frame that's already been built. The core around him is legitimately intriguing. There are a lot of oversized wings here, in Dybantsa, Keyshawn George, and Bilal Coulibaly. And there is the ongoing likelihood that Alex Sarr starts the season playing in a Twin Towers setup next to AD. That's a young, long, switchable front court. That's the kind of defensive versatility that modern basketball is built on. When you stack Dybantsa on top of that framework, alongside Trae Young's playmaking, suddenly the vision for what Washington can look like starts to crystallize. Trae Young specifically changes everything about what Dybantsa's rookie year looks like. Trae Young's presence alone as a dominant pass-first guard will make Dybantsa's rookie season a seamless transition. Think about that pairing from Dybantsa's perspective. He doesn't have to be the guy who runs the offense and creates for everyone else from day one. Trae handles that. AJ gets to move off the ball, use his athleticism in transition, attack closeouts, and grow into a creator role at his own pace. That's the dream setup for a rookie wing scorer. It also takes the pressure off in a way that most number 1 picks don't get. While most top picks have a chance to step into a feature role in year 1 tasked with doing the heavy lifting, Dybantsa won't need to come in and do exactly that. Kwame Brown walked into Washington as the number 1 pick with nothing around him. John Wall walked in as the number 1 pick in a similarly barren situation. Dybantsa walks in with Trae Young and Anthony Davis already on the books. The parallel to those previous Washington number 1 picks essentially ends at the draft slot. Let's also acknowledge what the outside world still refuses to give the Wizards credit for. The Wizards were already on their way up before they earned the No. 1 overall pick and the right to land Dybantsa, but nobody wants to talk about that. The front office was building momentum before this moment. The perception was still stuck in the losing years, but the actual construction of the roster had been trending upward. Dybantsa doesn't rescue a sinking ship. He gets on a ship that was already moving and gives it more speed. The GM's approach to developing young talent also deserves attention here. That's not to say that he and his Wizards representatives intentionally bring prospects in just to interrogate them on their worst habits. Such an abrasive strategy wouldn't convince many sub-20-somethings that Washington is developmental friendly enough, and plenty of pre-Dybantsa talents have already expressed their gratitude in Washington's managing style and how they're oriented. Dawkins isn't running a boot camp. The film sessions, the candid conversations about weaknesses, those are tools in a broader relationship-building strategy. The players who've come through Washington's draft process in recent years have spoken warmly about being developed, not just deployed. And that matters enormously to the Dybantsa family. Because this is a family that doesn't trust easily, doesn't hand over access readily, and has spent years protecting their investment in AJ from outside interference. For Ace to bring his son to Washington and be at peace with the organization had to earn that. And apparently it did. Dawkins has been working Dybantsa specifically. Here in Washington, he won't be tasked with as many creation duties, on a team already stacked with on-ball threats and veterans, a luxury that can give him the room to improve in the defensive areas he's previously listed. He, just like everyone who's ever played the game, isn't perfect, but Dawkins doesn't need him to be. As he spent the presser pointing out, Dybantsa has the worker's mindset and raw athleticism that executives dream about when they get as lucky as the general manager did last month. And the partners already sound set on how to move forward as key pieces in the Wizards' long-awaited rise. There's also the matter of what the Wizards already had before this pick. The franchise didn't just stumble into a good roster by accident. They traded for it, built it, drafted it. After Atlanta was unable to find much value for Young at the trade deadline, dealing him to Washington for CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert, the 27-year-old Young will presumably be a Wizard for a while. That trade was an opportunity Washington seized when it presented itself. They moved real assets to get a playmaker who, while no longer an MVP-level player, is still one of the best shot creators in the NBA. The Anthony Davis piece is equally fascinating. Davis arrived in Washington as part of a separate transaction, adding a defensive anchor and legitimate interior presence to a team that had been statistically disastrous on that end. And now you're adding Dybantsa on top of that, a player who's already been told by the front office that he'll be expected to defend full court from day one. The defensive ambition is real. The Wizards also understand what they're working with in terms of Dybantsa's competitive instincts. Dybantsa's most underrated asset as a pro is his inherent desire to share. He can score 30 with relative ease but hates not getting every one of his teammates involved. His reputation here is exceptional, which is connected to his high basketball intelligence. He's smart, and he will challenge you, but do so in a way to make sure everyone is trying to get the most out of the basketball experience. This is the part of the scouting report that numbers can't fully capture. A player who makes winning decisions instead of just individual decisions. A kid who genuinely wants the people around him to succeed alongside him, not just be spectators to his greatness. The BYU coaching staff was very specific in what they told league observers about Dybantsa's character. During his time in Provo, coaches and teammates told me Dybantsa was almost exclusively at one of 5 places at all times: his apartment, the athletic facilities in class, at his parents' house, at his sister's volleyball games, or commuting between one of those locations. The range of those 5 places is telling. Not clubs, not parties, not events designed to build his personal brand at the expense of his development. Basketball, school, and family. That's the entire radius of his life during the season, and his academic record backs up the lifestyle. Dybantsa's freshman year at BYU concluded with a 3.6 GPA. He told me he'll regularly be taking coursework in the years to come. Part of the deal with agreeing to declare for the NBA draft after 1 season was a promise to his mother that he will work every year to earn his college degree in his 20s, and not wait until after his NBA career was over to do it. A 3.6 GPA while averaging 25.5 points per game. He's going to keep taking classes while playing in the NBA to honor a promise to his mother. These are not the habits of someone who's going to let NBA fame, money, and attention swallow his development. The coach at BYU had some of the most accurate words when it came to summarizing the Dybantsa product. Credit to Chelsea and Ace, credit to AJ, Voigt said. The way he's handled all of it, it's been pretty spectacular. He didn't say anything about the scoring titles, or the draft stock, or the comparisons. He said spectacular because of how AJ handled it. Because handling it is the thing that's hardest. The talent was never in question. But the Wizards aren't naive about what they're taking on. For all the talent here, there is no winning history or proof of concept with this core. It needed another piece. Dybantsa, as a prototypical do-it-all wing scorer, is the kind of player that profiles as a missing piece. He joins Trae Young, newly signed to a 4-year near-max contract, as the Wizards front office expected to take this team from brief, shimmering glimpses to a real, consistent, winning NBA outfit. Shimmering glimpses. That's the most honest phrase anyone's used to describe Washington's recent seasons. They've had moments, but stringing those moments into a sustained effort hasn't happened yet. The outside world remains skeptical. Analysts aren't buying in. Critics are pointing at the franchise's history and saying one player, even an exceptional one, doesn't solve structural problems that run deep. And that's a legitimate conversation to have. One draft pick, however brilliant, doesn't turn around a franchise overnight. But the people inside the building are seeing something different. The players around the league who've interacted with the new Wizards, who've seen what the roster looks like, who've played against Keyshawn George and Bilal Coulibaly and Alex Sarr. Those people are giving Washington credit that the media hasn't caught up to yet. The narrative around the league from players has already changed regarding the Wizards, as they're now viewed as a franchise on the rise. Players know players, and the players are buying what Washington is selling. So here's where we land. A 19-year-old from Brockton, Massachusetts, the son of a Congolese immigrant who gave up a career in law enforcement to manage his son's basketball future, just became the #1 overall pick in the 2026 NBA draft. He skipped every single workout. He trained in Paris during the pre-draft process. He cracked jokes at a WNBA game the night before draft night. And he walked into Barclays Center and heard his full name, Anicet Dybantsa Jr., echo through the building as the first name called. The road from here is not without complications. This is, of course, not an easy transition. The Wizards played a chaotic ball flies everywhere style last season, which only faintly resembled winning basketball. That's honest. The Wizards' offensive identity last season wasn't a model of efficiency and structure. It was athletic and energetic, and at times completely disorganized. Trae Young's arrival is supposed to bring coherence. Dybantsa is supposed to add another gear. But turning a chaotic system into a winning one takes time, communication, and the willingness to lose games while you figure out what works. And Dybantsa is going to face the learning curve that every #1 pick faces. The NBA is a different game. The pace is faster. The coverages are more sophisticated. The opponents are longer and stronger and infinitely better prepared. The 43-point night against Utah in the Big 12 doesn't automatically translate into 35 points against a locked-in NBA defense. The adjustment is real, and the only question is how long it takes. But there are reasons to believe the adjustment won't break him. The 19-year-old is an elite athlete and 3-level scorer who should make an immediate impact at the next level. He thrives in face-up scenarios, in the mid-range, and when attacking downhill. Dybantsa's blend of quickness and top-shelf physicality allows him to exploit matchups, and his shot creation is among the best in this draft. His movement is fluid, and he boasts an explosive first step. That last part, the explosive first step, is the one that keeps defenders up at night, because a first step that creates separation at the college level usually creates even more separation in the NBA, where the spacing is better and the lane is more accessible. The defensive projection is also better than it looked on tape at BYU. Dybantsa can also operate as a point forward and primary facilitator thanks to his skilled ball handling and passing, and his ability to change speed and read defenses creates opportunity for teammates. Dybantsa's three-point shooting showed signs of improvement throughout his freshman campaign, as did his defensive skills, indicating remarkable upside in both areas. Both of his most criticized areas, three-point shooting and defense, showed improvement during the course of a single college season. That's a development trajectory. That's a player who gets better as the competition gets tougher, and his wingspan changes the defensive calculus. "I'm taking pride in defense a lot," he said. "It was kinda nice just to be a scorer at BYU, but being 6'9" with a long wingspan, being able to switch, on ball, and off ball, I can be a pest." A pest. Not a star, not an impact defender. A pest, the player who makes every possession annoying for the offense, who contests shots from angles that shouldn't be possible, who turns routine plays into uncomfortable ones. That's a specific and tactically intelligent goal for a rookie. The international credentials deserve mention, because they speak to what kind of player Dybantsa becomes when the games are at their most intense. Dybantsa won a gold medal while representing the United States at the 2023 FIBA Under-16 Americas Championship in Mérida, Mexico. He scored 12 points in the gold medal game and averaged 13.9 points for the tournament. The following year, he helped the United States win the title at the 2024 FIBA U17 World Cup in Turkey. In 2025, Dybantsa was named MVP of the 2025 FIBA U19 World Cup after helping the United States win their 9th title at the event. U was 6 gold, U won 7 gold, U19 gold, and MVP. He has never not won when representing his country. He's been on the biggest international stages for his age group multiple times and delivered every single time. That's not luck. That's a player who rises with the moment rather than shrinking from it. His draft night self-assessment was built on that track record. Being the no one pick meant a lot to me, said Dybantsa. Obviously, me being no one throughout all my high school career, I definitely wanted to be a staple, to be no one in the NBA draft, and be in the same conversation with LeBron James and Cooper Flagg, Allen Iverson, and guys like that. LeBron, Flagg, Iverson. Not modest comparisons, not carefully hedged expectations. He put himself in that conversation directly, out loud on draft night without flinching. And the receipts from his career, the FIBA MVPs, the national scoring title, the dominant freshman season suggest he has a right to. But the most important thing about where Dybantsa goes from here might not be about basketball at all. The Dybantsa family moves to Washington together. No matter where AJ lands after the 2026 NBA draft, Ace and Chelsea plan to follow their son as he begins his professional career. AJ told us 2 years ago, "I don't want to live alone when I turn pro." Ace told Deseret News, "I said, oh, don't worry. As long as you get us an in-law apartment so you can have your privacy. Yeah, we will be there." The entire family unit relocates. That's a level of continuity that you almost never see at the professional level. Most rookies arrive in their NBA city alone. New city, new teammates, new everything. And they have to figure out how to build a support system from scratch. Dybantsa arrives with the people who've known him his entire life already in his corner, in his building, down the hall. The stability that creates is harder to quantify than points per game, but it's arguably just as important. Chelsea's condition for the whole process was simple and non-negotiable. Although AJ entered the NBA draft after just 1 season at BYU, Chelsea made it clear that his education could not be left unfinished. She told Deseret News that she initially resisted the idea of her son leaving school early, and eventually agreed only after he promised to earn his degree. "We want him to finish at BYU. And that was kind of a tug of war in the house," Chelsea said. "Once AJ promised me that he will get his degree, I was like, okay, you can declare, but getting your degree is a must." He agreed, and he meant it. He will not disobey his mother's wish. Ace and Chelsea have carried a mantra of sorts. Education is the key to everything because they cannot take it away from you. The #1 pick in the NBA draft, who could walk away from college and never look back, is going to keep taking classes because he promised his mother. That tells you something about what kind of man he is. The question the league is really asking, underneath all the analysis, the rankings, the comparisons, is whether AJ Dybantsa is the player who changes Washington's trajectory. Sometimes you have to go off of vibes when you're talking about a rebuilding versus a contending era. And the vibes give a clear answer. Yes, AJ Dybantsa is the player who ends the Wizards' rebuild. That's not a guarantee of championships. That's not a promise that the playoff drought ends next season, but it is a recognition that the era of the Wizards being a team you feel sorry for is over, and the era of them being a team you have to take seriously has begun. John Wall, the last player to wear that #1 Wizards draft slot, said it most clearly. He looked at this 19-year-old and saw a young Tracy McGrady, not just as a scorer, as a player who could reshape the identity of a franchise. McGrady was one of those rare talents who made everyone around him look different, made teams look more capable than they would have otherwise been, and commanded respect from opponents who wanted nothing to do with guarding him. If that comparison holds even partially, if Dybantsa becomes half the player Wall sees in him, Washington has something it hasn't had since the championship era. A pillar, a reason to show up, a player who makes the tickets worth buying and the games worth watching and the future worth believing in. And the refusal that started this whole story, the decision not to work out, not to perform on command, not to go through the ritual that every other prospect goes through. That wasn't arrogance, that was clarity. Dybantsa knew what he had. He'd built it over a decade of 3-a-day workouts, honor roll grades, family chore charts, and 6-hour drives just to sit on the bench as a lesson. He didn't need to prove it to a front office in a 30-minute workout session. The work was already in the bank. So when he stood in front of the Wizards in Washington and talked basketball over dinner without throwing on shorts and doing layup lines, it wasn't a power move against the organization. It was a statement about himself. The kind of player who knows his own value doesn't need to audition. The kind of player whose film is so thorough, so dominant, so undeniable that the conversation happens at dinner instead of in a gym. That's not refusing the Wizards. That's arriving as a player who already knows what he's worth. The Wizards didn't just get a basketball player. Dybantsa joins John Wall and Kwame Brown as Washington's only no-one picks. But unlike those two, both talented players who walked into situations that were incomplete, underpowered, and ultimately unsustainable, Dybantsa lands in a different kind of Washington. One with Trae Young locked in for 4 years. One with Anthony Davis manning the interior. One with young wings who've been developing for seasons. One with an owner who says the plan is running ahead of schedule. The story that gets written from here is the one that matters most. The pre-draft process was fascinating. The family backstory is compelling. The BYU season was historic. But none of it matters if the Wizards and Dybantsa can't figure out how to win basketball games in the NBA's Eastern Conference. And there's one last thing to remember about this kid. The thing that might be the most relevant of all. At 6'9" and 217 pounds, Dybantsa has drawn comparisons to Kevin Durant, who happens to be his favorite player. Kevin Durant, the player his own father chose to call when vetting BYU's coaching staff. The player who AJ has studied his entire life. The player who combined unnatural length with elite shot creation to become one of the most unstoppable scorers the game has ever produced. Dybantsa isn't Durant yet. Nobody is Durant at 19, but the blueprint is familiar. The foundation, the family, the discipline, the academics, the work ethic, the commitment to being a complete player is there. The physical tools are there. The competitive resume is there. What's next is the part that nobody can predict. The grind of an 82-game NBA season, the adjustments, the setbacks, and the growth that comes on the other side of all of it. What we know is this. Anicet Dybantsa Jr. walked into the 2026 NBA draft process on his own terms, navigated it his own way, and came out the other side as the #1 pick. The Washington Wizards spent years building toward this moment, and a family from Brockton, Massachusetts, with roots in Congo and Jamaica and France and Boston, is about to find out whether everything they sacrificed for 20 years was worth it. The next chapter of that story starts now.